Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to From the Shed End. Welcome back. It's been a while. It's been a couple of days. Obviously, we've had the defeat to Manchester City, which we'll talk about tomorrow. But before we get into today's video, please go and subscribe to the channel. Let me know your thoughts in the comments and make sure you hit that Linktree link in the description as well. That will take you to all our social accounts and all our previous podcast episodes as well. We are going to try and keep this one short, but very informative as always. Now, we're going to start off with some injury news that we haven't spoken about on the channel. Badiashile has somehow managed to injure himself. He's hardly played any football under Frank Lampard, but he's got a hamstring injury which has kept him, or will keep him, out of action for months rather than weeks, which is what Frank Lampard's confirmed in his press conference earlier on today. He had surgery, I think, last week. It does mean he's potentially going to miss, or at least miss, all of the preseason in America, and then going into the new season as well after the break. But it's a massive bone of contentions, because I think obviously Badiashile, for me personally, is one of those defenders that we need to try and install and implement properly into the team next season. And with Maurizio Pochettino coming in, you would have potentially thought, or at least think, that Pochettino would be keen to try and get his best 11 fit and ready for the season. That's obviously going to hamper the plans to do that, with Badiashile being out now for a large period of time over that pre-season period. Now, it does obviously open the door for Levi Colwill, another player that has had a brilliant loan at Brighton. Someone at Brighton are keen to keep hold of, which the fans at the last game didn't make a secret of. But I think we have to now, obviously I've spoken on here before about Thiago Silva and the changing role that he's going to now have to have with, for me personally, less football time. With his age, with his, obviously still keep the experience around the dressing room and around the pitch and bring him into team games when we need him. But we should now be looking at Levi Colwill. We should be looking at Koulibaly. We should be looking at Wesley Fofana, and obviously Badiashile when he's back. I think we should be looking at those now going forward, trying to install and get our best 11. Now, obviously Thiago Silva for me is still part of that best 11, but he's nearly 40 years of age. We should not be still relying on Thiago Silva week in, week out in games. So it's a massive blow to lose him, and especially if it is for months, like Frank Lampard's alluded to today. If it is months, then it does kind of say, well, look, Levi Colwill's days, like I said, he's had a brilliant season at Brighton. It opens the door for the likes of Wesley Fofana to get more game time. It also maybe even gives an opportunity for Trevor Chalobah to break into that team as well. It's probably come at the right time for Badiashile. I'm surprised that it's happened, because like I said, he hasn't played much football for Frank Lampard, or even under Graham Potter. I don't think he played that much games. So it's a bit of a strange one. How's he got injured? A hamstring is a hamstring. It can happen at any point, but we'll have to see. Hopefully speedy recovery for Badiashile, someone who looks comfortable on the ball when he's played for us. So we don't want him to be out for too long. And hopefully now that he's had the surgery at this period in the season coming to the end, hopefully that will just spur him on. Hopefully we can get him back fit and ready for next season as soon as possible. But let's keep it on defenders, because another question that was asked to Frank Lampard in today's press conference was around certain players potentially playing their last game at Stamford Bridge this Sunday, the final game of the season. Now, Cesar Azpilicueta, again, someone that has been very heavily criticised at times from the fan base and praised 10 times over by the fan base as well. Someone that I've at some point said, his legs have gone. I think that's a fair criticism. I think he'd admit that himself. But in terms of what he's done for the club, in terms of what he's brought to the team over the years, won everything: Champions League, Club World Cup, Premier Leagues, FA Cups, League Cups. He's won it all. And he has to go out as one of the Chelsea legends. I'm sorry, he has to. There's going to be a lot of talk over the next couple of days, I'd imagine, about whether he is a Chelsea legend. Is he not? He's a Chelsea legend through and through. I think we can all say that. Has his legs gone? 100%. Cole Palmer had him on toast on Sunday, but he's still someone that we have to respect for what he's done at the club. Should he have gone last year? Possibly. There was obviously a lot of talk about Cesar Azpilicueta going to Barcelona. I think he wanted the move, but he committed himself another year to the club. And let's have it right. When he's been told to play right wing back, right back, yes, he's probably not got the legs, but he's still putting a shift. He's putting a good performance. And yes, he's been caught sleeping at times or been napping at the back or whatever. But look, he's a man of the back end of his career. You've got to think about the amount of running you do. I've played right back myself. I played right wing back. The amount of running you have to do every single game it takes its toll on you eventually. So I think Cesar Azpilicueta is at that point now where he probably just needs a slower league. He needs a retirement club. You know, he needs that one last move to another club with maybe less expectation of him, and you know, he can come off the bench a bit more and play a role maybe somewhere in Spain like he wanted to last season. But it's a shame, going back to the press conference, there was a question that was asked to Frank Lampard about, you know, have players been spoken to if it's their last game, which I'm assuming they will have. I mean, I don't think they're going to go into this sort of you know, end of season part of the season where they don't know whether they're going to be at the club. I think they're all internal. They'll have those discussions, and I think for me personally, it would be nice for the fans to know. You know, not more so for tomorrow's game at Old Trafford, but more so the game end of the season against Newcastle, which for me personally, we should know whether club club captains are going, you know, legends are going to the club. Is this their last game? So I think we should know that. Maybe not so for you know, some of the players that we expect to leave on a transfer, but I think it's a very unwell kept secret that Cesar Azpilicueta is potentially leaving the club in the summer. I think realistically we'd like to give him a good farewell. As Chelsea fans, I think he deserves that as well. So I think if it is a case that us as fans can be given that information, even if it is just a final sort of wave of goodbye, you know, I think we'll know on Sunday if he gives us the lap of honour. There's a lot of tears from him, but I think it'd be so strange at Chelsea. It wouldn't be the Chelsea of old, you know. I think if you remember back to, you know, John Terry, his last game, and the, you know, the fans, the club were well aware that he was going to come to the end of his Chelsea career as well. Frank Lampard didn't really get that, but he did come back I think as Derby manager to almost get a send off then. So I think we need to hopefully get that. I know there's going to be a massive banner. We tweeted about it on our social account on Twitter earlier on this week about the Cesar Azpilicueta banner that is being displayed. So everything's in motion, I think, for Cesar Azpilicueta to have his last game at Stamford Bridge and to almost go out with a bit of dignity. And no one wants to see Azpilicueta next season, you know, struggling at right back. You know, I think he's got to go out with his head held high. As I said, one of the club legends, one of the club's best players that we've had at the club. So, you know, I don't think there's there's criticism that's obviously come his way because of the performances that he's putting in. But like I said, you know, the position that he's playing, it's very difficult at the age that he is. You know, the intensity, the speed of the league has changed over the years as well. So credit to him, credit to how, you know, he's tried to keep it and maintain it. And I think, you know, hopefully he does get that send off. Hopefully there is some sort of end of the game, you know, it's almost a small presentation to acknowledge what he's done at the club, and just let the fans appreciate him as much as, you know, he appreciates the club as well. So it'd be very interesting how that unfolds on Sunday. But keep it in terms of contracts, transfers, etc. Mason Mount, a lot of talk today about Mason Mount. Apparently Manchester United are keen on taking him. Manchester City are keen on taking him. Liverpool, Arsenal, all the top clubs are keen to take Mason Mount. Now, you can look at this in two ways. And I'm going to do this bit first because this is the interpretation I'm taking from this, is that if Manchester City and even Arsenal to an extent now, look with the season they've just had, are interested in one of your players, there's a question that we should be keeping him, especially Man City. I mean, I don't think there's been a player, bar maybe Calvin Phillips actually, but there's not been many players that have gone to Manchester City and declined. All of them take that one. I mean, you look at Jack Grealish, who struggled in his first season, but has now gone on to be one of Pep's most important players in the team. You look at Phil Foden, who had an opportunity to go on loan, but didn't and stayed. And now look at the type of player he is. Even Riyad Mahrez, you look at him from when he was at Leicester to now he is at Manchester City. You know, the youngster, Julian Alvarez, brilliant player. So I don't think there's any question about Pep's ability to increase the ability and the quality of someone. And I just think the fact Manchester City, whether it's all hearsay, whether it's just, you know, Mason Mount's new agent trying to get the feelers out there and try and start a bidding war, possibly, which is what I think the other opportunity or the other option could be, that maybe the bidding war is trying to either bump up a contract at Chelsea and show, you know, Todd Bowley and co that, look, other clubs are interested in me. Give me what I want. But yeah, it's an interesting one. I think the fact that Manchester City are in for Mason Mount, or it looks like they want him, for me, it looks like we've got a player that we need to try and either give an opportunity to under Pochettino. When you think about Mason Mount over the last 3 years or 4 years, bar maybe Thomas Tuchel, he's had Frank Lampard as a manager. He's had Graham Potter as a manager. He's had Frank Lampard come back as a manager. So only the time really under Thomas Tuchel has he actually played any football. And the football under Thomas Tuchel for Mason Mount was not the best. But maybe that could change under Pochettino as well. So I do think, are we being a bit rash? This is not a Kevin De Bruyne and Mohamed Salah situation when we sold them and they were just kind of coming through the team and trying to understand what Jose wanted of them. This is a player that has cemented himself back-to-back player of the seasons for the club, and we're potentially going to get rid of him. So massive food for thought there from the club, from the agent, from Mason Mount. Again, Frank Lampard was asked today about Mason Mount and is he going to be playing his last game, or has he played his last game, with the injury that he's picked up for the club. And to be honest, Frank Lampard normally would give an indication of maybe there's something that can happen with the club and player, but he kind of just said, that's not for me to answer, that's between the club and the player. So it doesn't really seem like there's any negotiations going on. Very much similar with Mateo Kovacic, with the club trying to keep him, and I don't think they're worried about losing him. And I think the club would rather get some money this season for Mason Mount as opposed to losing him on a free transfer next season. So a lot to think about in the next couple of weeks, months, for Mason Mount, and see how that develops. But before we go, Manchester United preview. It's not going to be a preview. I'm just going to give you my predicted lineup, because what's the point in previewing a game that we're potentially going to lose? I don't see us getting anything out of this game. I think we checked out ages ago. I think we just didn't have the quality to get us through those games when we needed the quality to get us through the games. Manchester United still have something to play for. So as much as last weekend Manchester City never did, United do. United have to try and win the game to try and secure top four. But I look at our team now, and I don't see any real winners in it. I don't see anyone that is going to galvanise the team, push the team forward, get the best out of this team. I really don't see that. So I think, we're going to struggle against United. I really do. I think we struggled against Manchester City. Lack of possession, lack of conviction, no shape, no phases of play, no trying to get it in between the lines. There was just nothing. There was no system. There's nothing from this team. Conor Gallagher was almost starting as a wide right forward winger. It just didn't make any sense to me. So I think the formation that I've gone with, hopefully, so I've gone for Kepa and goal. I think Mendy potentially may have played his last game for Chelsea a couple of weekends ago. I think Kepa will have to start this game. Right back, I've gone for Trevor Chalobah. I just don't think Azpi could play back-to-back games so close together. I mean, obviously, we only played Sunday. This is now going to be a game against Thursday. And obviously, we've got another game on Sunday. So I think I'd like to see Azpi play his last game at Stamford Bridge and give him that final send-out. So Trevor Chalobah at right back. Wesley Fofana, with obviously Badiashile being out and Koulibaly back in training but not fully fit, I don't think yet, would be my partnership for Thiago Silva as centre-backs, with Lewis Hall continuing at left-back. Midfield two, I've gone for Ruben Loftus-Cheek and Enzo Fernandez, which is kind of self-explanatory. There's not really any other options unless you want to bring back Dennis Zakaria. Now, Carney Chukwuemeka has to start this game. And the reason I say that is because he's someone that, for me, he could be playing in the Under-20 World Cup. I think I spoke about that on one of the podcast episodes recently. But also as well, I think he might offer a bit more going into this game than Conor Gallagher would in that role. And it'd be interesting to see what Chukwuemeka going forward can do. I think he's only started or featured 7 times for us this season. He's one of the one players in the team that's got the fewest minutes under his belt, under the managers that we've had this season. So it will be interesting if Frank Lampard, who almost, well, not to say Frank Lampard blocked him, but the club blocked the opportunity for Carney Chukwuemeka to go to the World Cup and represent England. So I think if we're going to block him, let's play him. And I think that's the only rationale behind that. Now, my front three I've gone for. One of the things that Frank Lampard also mentioned in the press conference earlier today was João Felix is back in training after missing the game against Manchester City. Would I risk him? Not really. I know he's only got 2 more games of his loan deal left, but I've gone for David Datro Fofana up front. I've also gone for Noni Madueke on the right and Raheem Sterling on the left. Now, the reason I've gone for the 2 wide players is because Raheem Sterling, to give him his credit, the last 2 games has actually tried to put in a bit of a shift. And I think, again, we need to find that consistency, trying to find the best 11 to go forward for the next season. And I think, for me personally, Raheem Sterling on the left, Noni Madueke, I don't understand why he's not in the team when he's on the bench sometimes, because he's arguably one of our best players so far when he's featured. So, David Datro Fofana, obviously Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang clearly is not in contention to start any games for us anytime soon. So I've gone for Fofana going down the middle, because every time I've watched him, he just looks lively. He looks like he's going to do something. And I think we need to give him the opportunity. I think if we don't use him now, at what point do we know whether he needs a loan? Is it going to be in pre-season that we start using him when we should be trying to get the best 11? So I think we need to start assessing him from now, give him these 2 games to see what he can do. It's 2 games too little in my opinion, but I've been screaming for Fofana for a couple of games now, and I think we need to play him, see what he can do, see how he can feature in the game and what we can do with him. But I mean, it's a nothing game for us. You know, this game doesn't actually mean anything for us. We're not going to move up the table and get into Europe. We're not going to be able to, affect anything really in the season. Obviously, the league's won. We're not playing a relegation team, so experiment a little bit. Put Chukwuemeka in there, put Fofana in there. It's a nothing game. Do we need to get bragging rights against United? Of course, 100%. You want to win every game you play, but this is the time for me personally now to get a bit of consistency these next 2 games to show what we can do going forward. There's a lot we need to cover in tomorrow and Friday's podcast, so I don't want to take up the time today to do that. So let me know your predictions. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Let me know what you think. What would your predicted lineup be? What's the score prediction going to be? I'm not going to give one because I've been wrong all season, I think, almost. So let me know what your predictions will be in the comments for Thursday's game against Manchester United at Old Trafford. Thank you very much for watching. Until Friday, we'll be back Friday with our podcast. And hopefully we've got a win under our belt. But thank you very much for watching. Stay safe.